Hello, friends. Good morning to you. We're gonna pick up today. I was I've been catching back up on some reading that I've been doing. I'm right now rereading some things, but I'm I've got an interview I'm going to do with author Christopher Ryan, who wrote Sex at Dawn and Civilized to Death. And I'm going to do that in a podcast. And I thought that, so I've been doing some recovery review of material. And I just thought I would use that as inspiration for some of our talks while I'm deep into that particular work. And I had a couple really interesting observations. One this morning, which was fascinating. That sort of was in support of my previous aha moment, or just, the thing is, I've been speaking for so long about the condition of modern Homo sapien, because as a teacher of all of the crawling pattern work I did, I studied, which is sort of ironic because it shouldn't connect, but I was studying apes, but not for behavior, for locomotion, right? So completely off subject, really. So I started studying apes just to understand how they moved, and how that was related, of course, to human locomotion. And in doing so, I came across a gentleman named Frans de Waal, who is a primatologist, very, very, very respected. He wrote a beautiful book that I would then found called Our Inner Ape. Our Inner Ape, in case you didn't hear that and you want to write that down. Absolutely fabulous book, Our Inner Ape by Frans de Waal. So I started looking, so I went from, apes locomotively, that being the subject, to the sexuality of apes, to their general, behavior, their understanding, their intelligence, and then, of course, our relationship to them as we are great apes. Because sometimes humans, what we've done is we've sort of categorized ourselves outside of the animal kingdom, which is very clever. I like when you can categorize you can just go, oh well, we are this, and every other animal is that. So very clever humans. So we, of course, are great apes, and our relationship to the known great apes, the orangutan, the chimpanzee, the bonobo, the gorilla, these to understand really where we come from is to study our closest relatives and our cousins. So that's what Frans de Waal's book does. Very, very fascinating work. And this got me really thinking about what, man's condition in a broader perspective than simply the way we move like an ape. And so I started teaching these concepts of why we're so impressed with ourselves for being technologically advanced, why we care so much about that, and what that's created for us. And the subject of today, which was why our subject is specifically what, baby?
Is modern man happier?
Yeah, I'm sorry, because I had like 5 thoughts in my head. Is modern man happy? Are we happier now with technology and with all of the advancements that we've quote unquote made, the way we see ourselves as evolved? when, there's no way to really measure evolution. There's no absolute definition for evolution. Just, in other words, you've evolved, but what does that even mean? Really, the proper term would be adapt. You've adapted, because all we do is adapt to environments. We don't evolve within an environment. We adapt to the environment. Do you understand the distinction there? Because to think that you evolve within an environment means that you're progressively going somewhere. Where the fuck are we progressively going? You understand that there's an irony to that. It's like, oh, we're continuing to evolve to what? To our demise? Like if you evolve to the point where you kill yourself, have you evolved? So the very definition of evolution is very it's a very interesting dichotomy. So the question is, have humans evolved, or have we just simply adapted? And because we're ultimately a product of our environment. In other words, our environment shapes us, not the other way around. There's an irony to that, but if you think about it, you're born with eyes to see. You're born with ears to hear. You're born with taste to identify. But what's interesting is you're born with these tools because the environment has already determined you'll need them. Do you understand? So the environment, we're a product of the environment we're born into. So we're already adapted for it. That's why we're born with eyes. We're born with ears. We're born to already be in the space of that. So this idea that humans are, evolving, this is sort of part of our conversation today, but we're really talking about, are we happier, now? Because we seem to believe that we are. And it's so common to hear writers or opinion columnists, anyone, we're always talking about where we're going and where we're moving forward to, and where we're headed. And of course, this presumes, and this is, I think, what's interesting about the conversation, is it presumes that our past was so terrible. It makes the assumption that we were living in squalor, and we were savages, and we were violent, and we didn't live very long, and we were hiding from predators. That's the depiction of man, of postmodern man. You know what I'm saying? When you think about how you close your eyes and you see, most people see that man, our ancestors, as these dirty, Flintstone-looking individuals, because that's the narrative we've been sold. You understand? The narrative that we're constantly given is that where we were was dirty and dangerous and full of disease and death, and we certainly didn't want to remain there. So what we needed to do was get over here, and now that we're over here, we're really fucking happy. Now that we have all of this technology and comfort, now we're really happy, because surely we could not have been happy then. We could not have been happy living in a small troop of 100 to 150 people in a small band, living off of the land by foraging and hunting, having no bills, no responsibilities outside of waking up and, gathering food that was already growing. You did not have to cultivate it. Hunting what was available, communing, sharing together, not fighting over our possessions, because no one possesses anything. Everything is just shared. So we're not fighting over anything. We're not fighting for anything. Basically, if we're fighting, we're probably just trying to fight off possibly predators, or maybe a hostile neighbor, if that. Otherwise, we're just living. And you know, all that disease that we're fighting off right now wasn't even present. Our bodies were adapted to the environments the same way that a population of wild wolves is living and thriving. I mean, imagine a pack of wild wolves. Are they fighting off disease? Are they fighting off commerce issue? You know, are they fighting for possessions no, they're just living, and they're living quite comfortably. And that's the way humans live too. But again, there were, you know, are we sitting around again dressed like Flintstone in our saber-toothed tiger, you know, outfits and you know, I mean, what the fuck? You know, obviously we were indigenous peoples living off of the land with very little stress. The narrative is absolutely a lie. The narrative that we were living in squalor and filth and dirt, and that we were just like savages fighting amongst each other, taking shit in our hands and throwing it at each other, going, and then we're like, oh my God, how grateful are we that we're here now? How grateful, because aren't we so happy? Aren't we so fucking pleased? Isn't life so easy? How do you go from an animal that literally has to wake up and simply forage for food that's abundant and growing to an animal that has to be enslaved to make sure it has a home and food and its bills paid? Because we're all enslaved. This isn't freedom. We're not free. We've been pulled. I'll give you an example. I was listening to this young guy, typical person from this generation, because they all sound the fucking same. They all sound like Jordan Peterson at you know, a 25-year-old Jordan Peterson. They're all so intellectually fucking impressive, and they have this incredible vernacular. They use all of the right words that you know, and they cite all of the right authors, and they're just talking about all the shit they know and how they're so clear on how the world works, and they've never had a fucking kid. They've never, you know, had to deal with any real shit. They're not a parent. They're just like a 25-year-old, you know, academic, you know, whose just balls are just dragging the ground, and it's so boring, and I get so fucking bored hearing these guys talk. Oh, I'm sorry, I just had just a momentary rant. It's probably my matcha, which Melaine makes for me and gets me all jacked up in the morning. So I was just thinking, like, you know, this kid, he's talking, he's like, we have. And he's talking to a podcaster, and he's telling the podcaster, who's much older than him and much more experienced and seen much more. But he's telling him about how life works. And he's like, well, look at, you know, we've clearly evolved. I mean, and you know, obviously the economy is a good thing. Look at how many people we've pulled out of poverty, you know, in the last 100 years. And I'm like, are you fucking out of your mind? Pulled out of poverty? Motherfucker, we put these people in poverty. The global economy put indigenous people in poverty. It did not create poverty from people who already had wealth. It actually pulled people who have no education in economics whatsoever, and I'm talking about dealing with a dollar, creating a merchant system. These people are pulled into an economy suddenly and asked to participate, and you wonder why they're poor? They don't know any fucking thing about it. Do you understand what I'm saying? They have no relationship to it at all. And you pull them into it, and you expect them to thrive. You know, you understand the economy because you're raised in the economy. You're born into an economy. So you understand from the minute you're cognizant, you know, how to start counting pennies, and, you know, you save some, you spend some, you invest some. You start learning things about the economy and how it works. These people are pulled into an economy. They have no idea. They share everything. They just sort of, you just work, you're a community. So you pull indigenous people into an economic system, and then you claim that you pull them now out of poverty. It's like, what a joke. And this kid's just bragging on how modern man has pulled all these folks. I'm like, oh yeah, just like when we landed on the shores of some beautiful untouched land, and then claimed that we have, have somehow brought, education to these savages, and we've taught them, our ways, and aren't they so much better off now? We all know that joke, right? We're all familiar with that fucking narrative. That's the most boring narrative in human history. Just us, going into a beautiful indigenous place and raping it, and then asking for a thank you. How ironic. You're welcome, by the way. You're welcome. You're welcome for us colonizing you and bringing you, into a fucking system of economic struggle, instead of allowing you to just remain in your small groups, sharing and working together and caring for each other. What a terrible life. What a horrible idea. And just a thought, because I had it the other day. If you try to create anything, because I might go, well, let me Osho the shit out of this. I'll just buy some land, and I'll invite all my, I'll invite all you guys. Come on, guys, just come live. We'll just live. They'll fuck with you doing that too, because modern culture can't stand the idea of counterculture behavior. We don't what is the first thing you do when you find a group of people living together in a communal style? They are a cult. That's the first thing you do, is you call them a cult. They can't be just people living in a communal way. They have to be a cult. Am I wrong? So you can't even create this kind of environment, because modern culture does its very best to villainize it immediately. That's what it does. It right away wants to make it look somehow horrible. And God forbid if you do anything within that community sexual. Forget about it. If you have open sex policies, like people don't have to be in relationships, people can, if they choose, they can be with different partners. For God forbid you do anything that has anything to do with sexuality in it. Now you're a cult that's dangerous too. So you can't do anything counterculture right now. So our indigenous relatives lived in communities where ownership was just not something. It wasn't an idea. You didn't own anyone. You didn't own people. You didn't own possessions. You just didn't own. You shared everything. So there's something, that's very difficult for us to imagine, because we own so much, at least from in terms of our own. The social illusion is we own everything. Of course, you own nothing, because the government can take something from you any fucking time it wants to, which is why you own nothing. Right? I bought this property that I'm sitting on right now, right? This is my 5 acres of land, my homes. If I don't pay the government my yearly property tax is $6,000. So every year I give the government $6,000 to let me live on my land. And if I don't give them $6,000 to live on my land, they come and take my home. I mean, it's, so what do you own? You don't own anything. But yet the illusion, the social agreement is that we own things, and all this stuff is mine, and I don't, I can prove it, and yet really it's easily taken. So good for you to sort of work with that process of like letting go of all the stuff you own or the need to own it. It's tough, but it's that's an interesting body of work too. Ownership versus shared. Because now it becomes, ownership is the problem with ownership is it's insidious. It's like it's viral. It just sort of gets inside and it starts to grow in uncontrolled directions. So because we go from controlling the small possessions we own to controlling people. Like why would you think that a mind that's adapted to control and adopted that idea doesn't want to control everything? It wants to control people too. And that's not, so I'm not, I mean, you and me, us, we're born designed to own, to control our possessions, whether that's people, places, or things too. So we all have this cancer within us of controlling, owning. So I want you to investigate that your attachment to ownership, to control. It's something, sometimes it's just, because again, it's so socially normal. It's been normalized to the point that we don't recognize it as something, okay? And that's what I'm talking about. It's about you going, because again, it wouldn't stand out to you. It doesn't stand out to most of us because that's the social agreement. But if you go deeper, you start realizing, oh, fuck, man, I've been agreeing to this, but I'm not sure this is actually in the best interest of Homo sapiens, even though I've been agreeing to it. And that's what my work's always been about. It's about questioning what we're blindly agreeing to, and I say blindly, I don't mean it. I mean it's a blind spot. We don't know. We're just born into something, and we as you might imagine we would do, you just follow suit. And the people who are sort of questioning why we do what we do and why, how we got here, these are the people that disturb us. And I like to think of myself as one of those people, to disturb the way that we have adapted our thinking and question whether simply because that's the way it is that the way it should be? You know what I'm saying? Because that's the way it is. Of course, that question has to keep coming up for you. Now, where that question shows up in meditation is, who am I? What am I? Why am I? So then why becomes it could be my favorite word. I mean, if I think about it, I have a couple phrases. God damn it's one of my favorites too. God damn it, I use that a lot. I love that phrasing. Because, God damn these things. Zeus, be angry. I like I like that phrase, but I also like the word why. Because why leads you into every fucking interesting thing that exists. It leads you into every great moment of life. Why am I here? Why do I choose this? Why am I feeling this way? Why did I just do that? Why did I eat that? Why do I want that? It's a fucking beautiful, beautiful, beautiful question. If there's a few words that really matter, it's one of them. And so, thinking about this blind spot that we have of being addicted to ownership, it just brings us back to, are we happier now that we own so many things, that you own so much, that you have so many possessions and you have so much comfort and you have the security of ownership? Doesn't that feel good? Don't we tell all of our children, own a home? Own a home. That you have security when you own a home. You own this and you own that. Again, what we're telling people to do is buy into the system. Buy into the system, because when you're in the system, you're safe. Yeah, exactly. Becca's like, nope. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and this is the thing. Here's the thing. See, because they don't want you to get in a van and live and travel and be off the grid and untrackable and untraceable. And no, get in the system. Get a house. Get a property, get a location, get a place we can find you so we can tax you, and you'll be paying that property tax and that this, it's just get in the system. So I was gonna read. I'm reading this morning an article from out of Politico, and the writer is writing about the current $1 trillion bill that Joe Biden is trying to pass in Congress for infrastructure in the United States, investing in new bridges and roadways and water pipes and all this stuff, right? So, to bring America into the modern era, to compete with China. We've got to stay. We got to stay there next to China. Got to. By the way, I'm sorry, this is so off subject, but last night I was looking at global populations, and I just thought this is fucking fascinating. Do you know there's one, and this is a rough estimate, it's not absolutely correct, but it's like 1,400,000,000 Chinese people in the world. There's 1,400,000,000 Indians in the world. And then I was looking, it was population, and then there was like 330,000 Americans. So I was just like, wow, man, China has 1.5 billion people live in that country. 1.5 billion people. 1.5 billion Homo sapiens live in India and China. So together, collectively, 3 billion people live in these two places. It takes my mind into a place when you talk about the amount of humans on this planet, when you think there are 8 billion humans in the amount of population. It was because we were talking about why is COVID hitting India so hard, and I'm just like, hitting India hard. I mean, there's fucking 1.5 billion people there, with not the greatest infrastructure, medically, and I was like, I mean. Sure, that's a fair, that's sort of self evident in a way, but okay. Sorry, caveat. Jumping back to the article from Politico. So I'm reading the article, and this writer is pitching. His pitch is why it's so important that we invest into the economy, and why the Republicans are idiots because they don't want to move us forward into the modern world. They're trying to keep us this is the argument. They're trying to keep us in the Stone Ages of the modern era, and Joe Biden and the Democrats are trying to take us forward, and and so he writes in just doesn't so much matter the article, just a moment in the article that became so fascinating to me, so that it just revealed the rationale and the understanding and the perspective, position of the writer. And he said, he was talking about why we've advanced in the United States, why we've been able to build infrastructure and how it's been beneficial. And he starts talking about the old Northwest territories. And he said, Abraham Lincoln's family cultivated only a small portion. And he's talking about, we were so disconnected in America at one point without the railroad and transportation and infrastructure that we lived in all these disconnected places, and that we pick up from there. So he says, Abraham Lincoln's family cultivated only a small portion of its land to grow corn and vegetables and raise hogs and cattle, leaving the rest fallow and overgrown. leaving the rest fallow and overgrown. So this writer's perspective is that Abraham Lincoln bought this plot of land with his family, and they only cultivated a small bit of it, and they left the rest of it fallow and overgrown. The way this writer thinks of fucking the wilderness, the wild, beautiful, untouched fucking landscape is fallow and overgrown. What a fucking moron. I mean, what an absolute moronic thought that the way you think of land not being fucking humanized, not being civilized, not being built on top of with concrete and infrastructure is fallow and overgrown. Gosh, guys, look at that overgrown Amazon. Right? What a fucking insane statement. Look at that overgrown Amazon. Doesn't it just need to be trimmed a bit and cleaned up? It just seems so goddamn wild and and just, it's just like, I mean, I can't believe the world I live in. I can't believe the moronic thinking that I'm surrounded by. This is a writer for, a major, political platform, and just, he thinks he's so goddamn clever, and he's just like, look at that savage land that was overgrown and fallow, and now look at it beautiful with those freeways across it and those big buildings that are so packed with people giving each other COVID. It's amazing, it's just like, I mean, okay, where the fuck are we? But this is ultimately where we've landed. You know what I mean? This is where we've landed. This is how we think. And it's how politicians think. Our politicians are a nightmare. They don't live in the wilderness. They don't have a relationship to it. They're born in cities, they're raised in cities, they're educated in cities, and then they're making policy for the fucking wilderness. How do you make a policy for indigenous peoples when you don't know one? How do you make policy for indigenous landscapes when you don't live, when you don't live within it, or wilderness and you don't exist? How do you make policy for something you don't know any fucking thing about? And that is what we do now. We've got politicians making decisions for things they just simply don't know about outside of a fucking assistant who gives them a breakdown with a notepad and goes, well, the indigenous peoples of so-and-so are, it's like, right? Somebody comes in and gives them a fucking briefing on what's going on with those troublesome Indians near the Alaskan pipeline. And why are they not cooperating, and why don't they want this water pipe run through the middle of their land? These guys they're so frustrating, these indigenous peoples. They just, trying to preserve all their land, and it's insane. So what we're talking about, here is a question of, are we happier? I mean, are we? Are we happier now than when we lived in small tribes of people and we hunted and we gathered and we lived and we shared and we lived communally and we just sat by the fire together every night and told stories or laughed because, what's his name's, house blew over in the wind. And then we laugh about what's his name who couldn't catch the fish that day because he's such a bad fisherman. And we're all sitting laughing and talking about it and eating some fucking indigenous plants that are making us super high. And we're just like, yeah. And we're having these beautiful transitions between consciousness. One moment we're out and we're hunting and we're gathering and we're fishing, and the next moment we're, like I said, around a fire together, eating psychotropics and looking at the universe in a different way, and then coming back into our bodies and doing like the ability for these people to transcend states and move through positions, it's so beautiful, so fluid. And us, it's like, okay, this is what we're doing now, and this is where we're at, and okay, now I'm going to go do something completely crazy. I'm going to go and do an ayahuasca journey, and it's going to just, it's like now we're popularizing that idea of going and doing a journey, when it's like, it's not a thing you go do. And I know that, and let me flush this out. It's not something you go do. It's a part of your existence. It's your lifestyle. It's the way you live. You exist in these states, and it's just like you pull out of your medicine bag. What do you need that day? Do you need clarity? Do you need meditation? Do you need movement? Do you need a shift in consciousness? It's more like, but for us, it's everything's fucking it's commerce, it's commodified. It's like, okay, I'm gonna go, I'm doing this product, and now I'm doing that product, and now I'm going to do this product, and now I'm going to do that product, and I hate that, because I know I participate in it. I do. I completely participate in it, because Budokon online, it's a product. Do the Budokon membership, same fucking thing, same thing. And it's, there's, what do you do about it? I don't know. I'm just bitching, I don't have an answer. So in case you're like, he's going to get to an answer, I don't have one, just so that you're clear on that. So I'm not going to arrive at some point where you go, yeah, aha, because I don't know the answer to any of this. I'm just basically a social anthropologist. I'm just looking at how we're doing it and paying attention and discussing it. I'm not necessarily claiming to have an answer to it outside of this would be the answer, if there is one, to be first aware of it. And that's why we talk about it, to be first aware of it. Because if we can see it and we can identify it, we can start to work with it. At least we know that. Because we certainly know we can't work with anything that's a blind spot, that we can't actually see. So if there is something if there's something in the vicinity of an answer, it's at least to know what the problem is. I think that's the beginning of the answer. Is that fair? So it starts there. So I think it's an interesting dilemma, because I don't know what any of us are supposed to do about this. And it's going to take really intelligent people and really, but in a way, we can't count on intelligence either. Like, you know what I mean? Like, isn't intelligence what got us here? So there's something about using our intellect that concerns me as a solution to this. I wonder if we've got to start feeling again somehow. How do we feel about this? Not what do we think about it? Maybe. I don't know. But there's something that is, of course, terribly disconcerting. It's something that creates anxiety in us to know that this doesn't seem like a problem that we can easily solve. We're way far away from indigenous tribes. We're way far away from that. I don't think we're going back to that. Not unless we have a complete sort of deconstruction of society itself. So I you know what I mean? But that wouldn't be in our lifetimes unless the world just, went into we got a zombie coronavirus mutation, and the world just literally fell apart. Which, by the way, I just want you to wrap your head around the reality of that if in fact we had a virus that was more serious than corona, that was equally as contagious but more serious, like a real issue, that the effect it would have on humanity, I mean, it would be, no one would go to work, because if this virus had a 50% rate of mortality, so it killed every 2 people, 1 is going to die from getting it. If this thing had a 50% mortality rate and hit us, no one would go to work. No one would go to work. You'd stay at home, try to protect yourself with your family, but then you don't have food. The farmers aren't going to work. The people that run the electric company aren't going to work. The people that run the water, the gas, no one's going to work. You understand that, right? So you don't have internet because you don't have anyone even manning the power grids. You don't have anyone going to work. So you don't have electricity. You don't have this. You don't have food being produced. I want you to understand how fragile. I just want you to take a moment and understand how fragile modern happy man is. Right now, you are completely dependent on the fact that this recent virus was not deadly. That's it. If there's anything that we've learned from Corona, is how fucking serious, really, how serious, when these epidemiologists have been saying, I mean, a pandemic is a real thing that we've never experienced it as a modern human. So let me flesh this idea out for you, because we're like, okay, well, this, what about the Spanish flu? Guys, Spanish flu, we didn't have the transportation and connection that we have right now during the Spanish flu. So if you want to transport the Spanish flu forward to now, it looks really different, and it killed a lot of fucking people. So what's interesting about a modern pandemic is, man, this was like a really fascinating, if you just were be purely an observer, a witness to it, it was a fascinating look into how fragile we are and how close we are at any moment to fucking full collapse. Nothing but one virus that is easily spreadable. It lands in society and it fucking spreads. Just like Corona, easy, whatever, no big deal. I got Corona, a couple days, boom, boom. Again, didn't matter. So point is, this was a little bit of a dry run. It's like, okay, let's nature was like, okay, let's mark this. Let's see how this goes. Okay, and humans, shit job, well done. We just went, and we fell apart, and we couldn't figure out what the fuck to do. So, because honestly, if you could even see what it was, if you could even understand, you go, guys, okay, everybody, humans, hold on. This is not really that bad. Everybody chill out. But we're going to pretend it's really bad just to see what the fuck happens if something really bad hits us. Like if you could, go back in time, that'd be an interesting experiment. So you could just see, okay, can we get together and work this out in case a real virus comes through that fucks people up? And the truth is, we're going to be in trouble. We're going to be in big trouble. Big. We all operate and participate and exist on the grid. And when the grid shuts down, and I'm talking grid is food, water, shelter, it's everything. We're operating on the grid shuts down, and there's going to be mass starvation, crazy shit. Do you know how many of you guys are going to be coming to my house? Because I have a full garden outside, 5 acres of land that we've... You'll be like, I hear this is the place to go. There's food. Exactly. I'm like, and because I'm right now growing, we've created this huge garden outside. And I don't mean like a little garden, I mean like a big, that's going to make a lot of food. And I'm just now learning how to make food. I've grown little things, but to really man a nice sized garden, and then learn how to also, preserve and jar the food for wintertime. Like it's really learn how to fucking learn how to create food, because I can't go back to foraging, unfortunately, because like the next level back would be hunting and gathering. And it's a little tough. It's a little tough to gather anymore. Not a lot. I mean, you can go hunting out here, certainly. But the way the indigenous Indians lived in Montana, really beautiful. They mostly hunted the buffalo, and they lived nomadically, of course, because we're nomadic people. Humans are nomadic. We've always been nomadic. We weren't designed to stop and live in a city, live in a town. We're nomadic creatures. You understand that? We move. And so we've left that as well. We've lost that. So anyway, grow your food. Back to the pandemic. We're all dying. Zombie land, go. Okay, so we're there, and because the narrative is that everything is shut down, and we literally don't know how to get food, because it's not showing up at this building next to us where we can go over and get some. You know what I mean? Which is so classic. It's like, wait a second, where's my food? It's not at that building. And it's like, how did it not get to that building? Oh, well, no one took it to that building. And because, no one picked it up, because no one's fucking leaving home, because this thing's killing, 1 out of 2 people that it touches. And here's the thing. The modern, our like super smart scientists, the epidemiologists specifically, they're calling for a pandemic. They're like, no, it's coming. It's they're so far they're pretty goddamn accurate, in terms of it's coming. They've been calling for this to be coming, and not coming. I think that this is where conspiracy starts to creep into conversations. Not it's coming like, someone's getting ready to implant. Bill Gates is out there breathing on people, trying to get them hooked on. I mean, this is absurd. So please don't think that way. If your brain's like, yeah, but Bill Gates, I watched this and I'm like, please stop, please don't do that, because you're losing all credibility. So what's important is to understand that the epidemiologists have been saying, we get hit with viruses historically as humans, and the more we encroach upon wildlife and obviously interact with it, the easier it is for us to get viruses passed to us through these wild creatures that, of course, shouldn't be fucked with. You just don't fuck with all the wild animals. You let them be, but we can't. We got to touch everything. We're like that fucking, that's us, And because we got to touch it, right? Doesn't it remind you of just, I want to touch it. I fucking have to touch it. And that's the fucking human ape. That's the Homo sapien. And because we have to, we cannot not touch it. It gives us a virus, and no big deal, because every fucking animal has viruses. But when we get one from these creatures that it's harmless to them, but not so much to us, and then it mutates, which again is an interesting argument. We all know coronavirus is mutating, right? Because viruses mutate. Now, is anyone aware of the science around when we have a bacterial infection, we're given penicillin, and they're talking about the fact that penicillin is, of course, having trouble dealing with the mutations of bacteria. You know what I'm talking about? The science around that we're actually that our antibiotics are becoming less useful. You've heard this, right? You know this work, right? So as our antibiotics are getting less effective, well, what do you think it's going to happen with these vaccines? There's a question as to whether or not, the more we, fuck with these things, and the more they, the variants are created from resistance, right? I mean, this is at least my understanding, is that variations are created from resistance. Okay, does that make sense? So antibiotics are resistance, vaccines are resistance. And so what they create is the counter reaction, which is mutation. So the question is, are we, by resisting, creating more dangerous mutations of something? So the question is, how crazy will coronavirus get? And again, look, I'm just being completely, this is all hyperbole. I'm just being completely absurd right now. But just imagining, well, if that logic plays out, I guess it's possible that our resistance to corona could create a more difficult mutation, possibly. Again, this is some of the argument that's out there, is, the more we resist something, the stronger we make it. So I'm like, okay, fair enough. There's good reason in that. I can hear that. I'm not sure it's absolutely true, but it may be worth your investigation, right? So again, because we're just chewing on stuff, we're just talking this out. But if it gets more, if something happens and it gets more deadly, not necessarily more contagious, because it seems really fucking contagious. Melaine came back, as I told you, that when she brought it back, she came back and got the whole house, corona'd. Like, bam, it was like, it just spread. So it is definitely easy to catch, for sure. Not deadly in general to most people, but definitely easy to catch. So if something out there that's that easy to catch gets nastier, okay, we're going to have a problem. But it ain't going to look like this problem. It's going to be, again, you think we stressed out over toilet paper shortages? Wait till there's no food. You know what I mean? We lost our shit over toilet paper. Wait till there is no food on the shelves, guys. I'm just making a point. And as soon as, and this modern society we live in is really, it's really savvy. So as soon as, the next thing starts, boy, people aren't going to wait. They're going to be already at Costco just filling up dump trucks and trying to get themselves, into their bunkers. I mean, people are going to react even quicker the next time, because they've already had a dry run with this. So they're like, okay, honey, get to the. So I'm fascinated as to what's going to actually happen in the future, where, when this thing, I mean, hey, and man, I hope it doesn't, by the way. I hope it doesn't happen to us. But if it did, I'm being practical about what this could do. And I think we should all be aware of it and be sensitive to how dangerous the, biotechnology is, and the constant fucking around with mutation, mutating these viruses. And just, we're constantly fucking with nature. Stop, I guess what is my point? Stop fucking with nature. We need to stop it. We need to fucking leave it alone. Stop constantly trying to control it and interfere with it. And, this virus thing is the same thing. It's like, honestly, guys, and look, I know this is a terrible argument. I'm just going to make it. You're going to be like, well, he's not wrong, but it's not necessarily the easiest pill to swallow and deal with. But the reality is people have to die. Viruses go through animals, they kill them, and you just have to let the world work as it works to some degree. And look, I know we're all the beneficiaries of technology. You know, we've all got friends or parents or family that have survived something through technology, and I get it. I understand. I know that it's a contradictory statement because we're all somehow the benefactors of technology. Agreed? And yet, what is saving us and prolonging our lives is also completely destroying, our ecosystem and just everything that makes us, like, everything that makes life worth living. So the question is, what the fuck are we going to do about that? I don't know, but it's just, the reality is that you've got to let a virus pass through. It's got to do its thing, just like any species would have to do, and that's how nature keeps balance. And we've opted out of that balance. We're the only animal that's able to fucking opt out. We're like, nope, we're going to stand over here. And we're able to do that. But at what cost? Because we think that the cost right now is just this, but actually it's this and that. It's, yes, we get some lives saved, and in turn we create more problems that kill more people. It's like there's no way to win in this whole thing. Devon is on here. Devon, who's, one of our favorite humans, because she's a reason a lot of you guys are here. If you're in the teacher training program, you've met Devon. Can you see her in the window there? Can you guys identify her? Yeah. So that's Devon's face, in case you're like, I've worked with Devon, but I never knew what she looked like. She's that beautiful brunette sitting there, looks like a nerd, like a hot nerd. That's her. So anyway, Devon. Now, so Devon's grandfather, he was 90, right? Pretty sure.
Yeah, let me unmute. He was 93.
Yeah, our grandfather's 93. He's perfectly healthy, right? Perfectly healthy.
Yes. Yes.
No problems. He takes the vaccine and pick it up from there, Devon?
He actually just wanted to go back to the swimming pool to swim so he could get his exercise in, because that was his favorite thing to do. So he wanted to get the vaccine, and he got the first vaccine. He did okay, the first shot, Moderna shot, and then he got the second one. Within 3 days, he was hospitalized. After that, then they said his kidneys were shutting down, and there was nothing they could do for him, not even dialysis. It was basically end of life. So it took 3 weeks, and then he passed away at home, so with the family and everything. But yeah, he got...
Devon, somehow we lost you. We lost you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Where did you lose me?
After he passed.
Oh, so, but he passed 3 weeks later. So, but they all said that they couldn't find where the infection was coming from. So he just, it happened that quick. It was just like boom,
right,
shot, boom,
right.
sick,
So
boom, he was gone.
Right, and guys, look, I want to just say this: I'm not an anti-vacciner. I'm not some guy on a mission. I don't give a shit, honestly. I don't. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care that much for any of that business. I'm just telling you that it's when a man's 93 and he's doing fine and he takes a vaccine and 3 days later he becomes ill and he dies. I'm sorry, but you can call that, you can say, well, that's either causation or coincidence. I find it hard to believe that that's coincidental. So for me, my attitude is, I'm not going to get vaccinated personally until I have to. If I have to, I'll deal with it at that moment. I don't want to say what I will or won't do. I've thought mostly I would, and because I don't think it will kill me. I don't. But more my resistance to the very idea is I don't think I need it. And that's why I'm resisting it right now. I don't need it. And that's all. Nothing more, no conspiracy. I just don't need it. And when I have to have it, I'll look at that moment. But up until that point, a healthy person, I've had coronavirus. I've had 7 or 8 people in a house with me who had it. Everyone recovered. Different people, different health standards. Everybody was fine. So the reality is that of course it does kill people. People do die from the virus. And I get that. I'm not diminishing that. But the average person that's healthy, the idea that you would take a vaccine to protect you from something that would not kill you if you got it, I don't find that sound and logical. And right now I'm not going to act in defiance to my own logic. So that's all I'm saying. You take it how you want to take this conversation. And again, I am not an anti-vacciner. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm just saying that if I'm looking at this very simply, I don't need to take a vaccine for something that will not kill me. So I'm not interested in putting that in my body until that makes more sense. So you make your own decisions. But I've told this story before, and I'm going to tell it again. I have seen the vaccine actually work, because in that house of 7 people that got corona, the one girl who had been vaccinated, she did not get corona. She did not get corona at all. And she was, everybody had it. She was in it. There was no way that girl was not going to, but she was the only person vaccinated because she was a frontline healthcare worker. And so I can also say I've seen the vaccine work, which is so ironic. You know what I mean? I've seen it work. However, I've also seen my immune system work because I didn't die. Do you understand how that works? Like, I want you to just wrap your head around that. I've seen the vaccine work to stop someone from getting corona. I've also seen my immune system work to stop me from dying from corona. Okay? So that's how I see it. You can see it any way you want to, but that's my logic. And I hope that this is beneficial to you in some way, thinking through that. Okay? So thank you, Devon, so much. And of course, we all send our hearts and our love to you for the loss of your grandfather. So, it's always, but he's 93. The old man lived a goddamn good life. I could tell you that. 93 is pretty good. So congratulations to him. So anyway, that was just something that I thought I would throw out to you guys. Modern man, modern technology, vaccines, and then how that interacts with who we were before, and why it's important that we learn how to return somehow, in some way, to our original selves, while at the same time living in a contemporary way. And we're going to have to figure that problem out, because if we don't, we're just going to continue to be the most diseased, the most depressed, anxious, suicidal, violent animal on the planet. That's pretty much sums up humans. Now you can go into the pot. What about our creativity and our intelligence? And I'm like, yeah, guys, but the problem is that creativity and intelligence, is also the reason we're here right now, because everybody wants to suck Elon Musk's dick. They're like, oh my God, Elon Musk. I'm like, everybody put the Elon Musk dick down. This guy wants to live on, hey. This fucking guy wants to live on Mars. He thinks living on Mars is cooler than living on the Earth. What a fucking douchebag. Why don't you come to fucking Earth and live in it, you nerd? Get the fuck out of your fucking space car and go camping. Who the fuck wants to live on Mars when the fucking wilderness is beautiful? Who wants to live in a desert of red clay and nothingness, you fuck twat? This guy is a fucking nerd who created PayPal, another commerce site, and and wants to get us colonizing another thing. What a fucking dweeb this guy is. He is a fucking full loser. He's now I sound like Trump. He's a loser. But I mean, I just find him to be, and the reason I find him to be so unimpressive is because he has not connected and doesn't understand who we are. He's always so fascinated with who we could be. I'm more interested in who we are than who we could be. I'm more interested in where we've come from, but I don't want to hyper focus on that, because again, then I might as well be Elon Musk at this point, because I'm now not in the who we are, I'm in the who we were, and I'm so fucking fascinated with that. And I can't get out of that state of the past or the future. Who we are, we need to really dig deep here. But sometimes we can figure out who we are by who we were, and we can also imagine, I get who we could be, but I'm lost right now with why we're so fascinated with who we could be when we're not even doing very well at who we are. I think that's just a good stopping point for us, That's good. Because if I go on, it's just going to be more ranting. We can't solve the problem, But let's take a look here at some of the questions that were asked or things that were said, because that'll be a good laugh. Let's see. Mark, you just said, I think technology advancement, though, is inherent to our nature. Technology is just a novel means of solving a problem. Example, boats were technology at one point. We are innate problem solvers and so always continue to make technological progress. The dilemma is choosing what problems society puts resources behind solving, and also what we then choose to do with that technology. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I mean, clearly, tool making is one of our skills. And solving problems is also, it's not unique to us. All animals problem solve, by the way, just in case, we get a little arrogant. We're like, we solve all these problems. It's like all animals solve problems. My dog figured out how to get out of the door. It's like you understand, animals solve problems. Humans, we're one of the unique animals that solves a problem and then creates two more with the solution, which is what makes us sort of fascinating in our own way. We're like, look at this amazing solution that's created two more problems now, and we're like, look, we're gaining. You're like, are we gaining? But to Mark's point, what is important to remember is that humans, yes, we got here because we're so fascinated with solving problems and creating more ease and comfort. And what's this to me is fascinating. When you find the remaining indigenous cultures on the planet, there's very few, but the remaining, untouched indigenous peoples, they've been living the same way for, you could possibly argue, since man is 300,000 or so years old, you could just say that they've been living this way for 100,000 years or so. And you're like, how is it that they're still living that way? They're still using bow and arrow. They're still hunting and gathering. They haven't invented a way to, as an example, they haven't invented plumbing, no way to, for running water. Why wouldn't they do that? Because another thing that's really interesting for you to understand about primitive man is that primitive man is just as intelligent as you. Do you understand that? So in your mind, you think of these indigenous peoples in the Amazon, and they're just like, but no, fucker, they are as smart as I am, you are. They just simply have never been exposed to the information, but their brain is fully capable of everything yours is, and they're living a full life with language, culture, family. Like they're living a complete and full life. Do you understand me? A full, happy life. They don't invent anything outside of what they simply need to interact with the forest that day. That's it. That's what they do. You know what the difference is that they, for whatever reason, and I don't know why some of us went in the direction of modernization and some of us just stayed. But what's fucking fascinating is that some of us have literally stayed to this day in that reality. And whoever broke out of that thinking was the first person who started colonization. You understand? That's where it all began. Breaking out of that thinking, getting out of the cycle of nature and just living in it. That first person who thought they were so clever is the one who tipped the first domino to where we are right now. So I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just making a point that we never want to think of indigenous peoples as not living full, rich, completely intelligent realities. They just don't do what we do. They don't know what we know, but they're fully capable of knowing any of it. Their brains have full capacity to learn anything you know. So let's never think of them as like the savages and us as the advanced people. That's very, very important to be clear on. So it is an interesting thing. We are inspired to make tools. We are inspired to advance, but these are the dilemma. Let's see. It'd say perhaps it's because we believe that complex problems have to have complex solutions. I heard about that management advice to give the most complex problems to the latest people because they will find easy solutions. Oh, to the laziest people, right? Yeah, I've heard that as well. That's so funny. Like when you have a really complex problem, give it to a lazy person because they'll cut corners. Now that's probably not true. I like the thinking because it makes me laugh and it's kind of comical. But I got to be honest with you, I'm not sure that the laziest person that I know is able to hold opposing ideas and in complex things. A lazy body is a lazy mind. A lazy mind, for me, the risk you run of dealing with a lazy mind is someone doesn't know how to think something out completely. They only think one side of it out. So I'm not sure I would trust a big problem to a lazy person. But I like the general notion because it's comical and it makes me laugh. Let's see. Thank you. Okay, we think we are so smart but not able to live for only 1 week out in the wild nature. Exactly. I think it's a great point. We think we're very intelligent and yet we cannot live stranded in the wilderness for probably longer than 7 days. I don't disagree. Probably between 7 and 10 days, we're already heading into death. Or, you know what I mean? I don't know. You wouldn't even know what to forage. You don't know what wild mushrooms look like. You don't know, you just wouldn't know anything. You just wouldn't know what to eat for the most part. So, and then you're not fast enough to catch a monkey. If you were hungry, you're like, okay, I'm going to catch that monkey. I'm going to eat that fucker. Can't catch it. You don't know how to make any tools. You don't really know much about. You don't have great teeth or speed or the ability to do anything. Your hands are soft from touching all those keyboards, and you're like, we're just fucking fragile creatures. So I'm not sure what how long we'd live in any condition, which is a funny one. Okay, so. To wrap it up, I think that's a good one. Complexity, simplicity. Maybe part of our lives is about, again, getting back to simplicity. Less is more. When are we going to, really get that less is more? Less. And, understanding that what drives our complexities are oftentimes the need to be important or to be loved or to experience beautiful things. During this pandemic, I can't imagine how many people were therapy shopping. You know, therapy shopping is like online. I feel so bad, so I go on Amazon and I just buy shit. And I just feel better because I just bought all this new stuff. So I'm getting all this therapy out of shopping, and it's making me feel better because I'm bored as fuck. And I mean, can you imagine why all these billionaires got more wealth during the pandemic? Because shopping, you know, online shopping just went through the roof, of course. So people just needed a way to just kind of get some tension out. I need to spend some money. I need to buy some new stuff. I need some new products, you know, and that's what we do. We're like, okay. So simplicity, let's wrap this up with that thought. Simplicity, less is more. Maybe the answer is in the simple solutions, not lazy necessarily, but simple solutions. Finding the right way to, solve a problem that doesn't create two more problems. Looking for ways to make our lives less complex, and being pleased, with simple things again, and figuring out what we're going to do about this problem of food and all these things. Maybe you should start growing your own food. Maybe you should get out on your little balcony and get one of those cool planters and start growing some lettuce and some tomatoes, and start growing your own food no matter where you live, no matter what environment you're in right now. Why don't you start growing your own food? Start thinking about ways to live, wild, yet somehow remain civilized. Is such a shit term that is. Aren't we so civil? So something to consider, to try to find that balance. But don't remain lethargic and just sit around and wait for the worst. Go ahead and be proactive about working back to the simplest things. And that's all we can do, each of us. We're in a difficult situation. It's contradictory. We're all needing to sell something to make our money. We've been pulled into the economy, and now we're all having to participate. I've got to produce something, I've got to sell what I produce, and then I've got to pay someone else who produces something else that I need. And that's where we're at now. And I don't know the answer to that, but let's keep inquiring. Let's keep being curious about what the answer could be and how we can continue to do that work. So it's been a pleasure to spend Sunday with you guys.